Good evening. It's Thursday, the 11th of September, and here's what's making news around the world on World News Tonight. Fatal shooting. High-profile conservative activist Charlie Kirk shot dead at university event. Manhunt still underway. Poland airspace. Poland downs multiple Russian drones violating its national airspace. Boiled off fun. Chicago crowns winner in its first ever Baddest Baldie showdown.
From Colombo, this is World News Tonight with Prithika Sivakumar.
Good evening once again. Conservative activist Charlie Kirk was tragically shot dead during a political rally, sparking shock and outrage across the nation. Authorities are investigating the incident, while supporters and lenders condemn the attack and call for calm as details continue to emerge.
Counting or not counting gang violence?
This was the shot that claimed the life of Charlie Kirk.
Oh my God. Go, run. Where is he?
Sparking pandemonium on a college campus where he'd been speaking.
Apparently there's been a shooting. I don't know who's been shot.
Hundreds fled in terror.
Oh my gosh!
A single shot thought to have been fired from a rooftop by someone in dark clothing.
Oh my gosh!
Amid the panic, a body carried from the scene.
Stop, folks! Back up!
The high-profile conservative influencer had just answered a question about gun violence in America when he became its latest victim.
I was watching from pretty close up, and I heard a pop, and I thought, no, that nobody's shooting firecrackers, right? This is the middle of the day. And then I watched a fountain of blood come out of the side of his neck like a water fountain. And it was surreal. Everyone dropped, and I was like, where's the gunman? I don't see any gunman. And then I dropped.
It was President Trump who confirmed his death. On his orders, flags were lowered to half-mast on the White House.
This is a dark moment for America. Violence and murder are the tragic consequence of demonizing those with whom you disagree day after day, year after year, in the most hateful and despicable way possible.
On Capitol Hill, they had prayed for his survival.
Please rise for a moment of prayer for Charlie Kirk and his family.
News of the shooting at Utah Valley University having gone viral. The security response was swift, the FBI joining the hunt for the shooter at a moment of peril for America.
It's a tragic day for our nation. And I want to be very clear that this is a political assassination. I don't care what his politics are. I care that he was an American.
My name is Charlie Kirk. I run the largest pro-American student organization in the country.
A writer, activist and podcaster, he had 20 million followers online and championed Donald Trump.
Trump is the bodyguard of Western civilization.
Charlie Kirk's influence was enormous, an icon of the right, now victim of polarised politics.
I believe today he was killed for the words that he says and the things that he stood for. And we're honestly shocked. We're devastated, shocked, and angry.
Enough of this. This is horrific. This is awful. And the assassination of Charlie Kirk risks an uncorking of political chaos and violence that we cannot risk in America. We cannot risk it.
Charlie Kirk was 31 years old, married with 2 young children. His death raises familiar questions about politics and guns. But America has no answers.
Reactions and tributes are pouring in following the death of conservative activist Charlie Kirk, shot during a rally. Supporters, political leaders, and the public mourn the loss, while law enforcement continues a thorough investigation into the circumstances surrounding the attack.
Charlie Kirk was one of the highest-profile conservative activists and media personalities in the U.S. and a trusted ally of President Donald Trump. The son of an architect who grew up in the well-to-do Chicago suburb of Prospect Heights, Kirk attended a community college near Chicago before dropping out to devote himself to political activism. Kirk started Turning Point USA at age 18 with the aim to bring awareness to conservative ideals at liberal-leaning U.S. colleges. The organization played a key role in the Get Out the Vote effort for Trump and other Republican candidates in last year's election. The millennial was credited widely with helping to register tens of thousands of new voters and flipping Arizona for Trump. Vice President J.D. Vance paid a heartfelt tribute on X to his true friend Charlie Kirk. He described Kirk's steadfast support during his Senate and later vice presidential campaigns. He praised Kirk's faith, devotion to his family, and willingness to engage with those he disagreed with. Utah residents paid tribute to Charlie Kirk at a makeshift vigil outside the hospital he was brought to. U.S. flags and lit candles dotted the ground around a sign leading to the Timpanogos Regional Hospital in Utah's north-central city of Orem, as residents came to pay their respects to Kirk, who was 31 when he was killed. Authorities said they still had no suspect in custody. With the suspect still at large, there was no clear evidence of motive for the act of violence.
Poland has shot down multiple Russian drones that violated its national airspace, marking a significant escalation amid the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. NATO allies are closely monitoring the situation, while Poland calls for consultations under Article 4 of the Alliance Treaty.
Polish armed forces shot down Russian drones aiming at Ukraine after they hovered around Poland's airspace. On Wednesday, the Polish government said more than 10 drones were detected, and those posing threats were neutralized. This marks the first time the NATO country has taken down such assets since the Ukrainian war began. Poland briefly closed its airspace and launched a military operation overnight, joined by NATO aircraft to ensure safety. No casualties were reported, but efforts to search for debris are underway. Residents in regions along the Ukrainian border were advised to stay at home and avoid touching any suspicious objects until the operation was completed. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk immediately convened an emergency government meeting earlier in the day.
All our allies are taking the situation very seriously. I am in constant contact with the NATO Secretary General. This is so that we can respond to this type of threat as effectively as we did.
As any attack on a NATO member state is regarded as an attack on the alliance as a whole, concerns are growing over the war in Ukraine widening. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky warned on social media that this sets an extremely dangerous precedent for Europe, calling for a NATO-style joint response and sanctions on Russia. He added that more weapons are needed to contain Moscow, saying the country must feel that the war cannot be expanded and will have to be ended. With tensions rising, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said the EU stands in full solidarity with Poland. And a NATO official also said the alliance is in consultations with Warsaw, hinting at further coordination with allies if its security is threatened.
Former President Donald Trump is urging the European Union to impose 100% tariffs on goods from China and India, escalating trade tensions and signaling a more confrontational approach to global commerce, with potential wide-ranging economic and diplomatic implications.
US President Donald Trump urged EU officials to hit China with tariffs of up to 100% on Tuesday. That's according to sources including a US official and an EU diplomat. It's part of a strategy to pressure Russian President Vladimir Putin. One source further said Trump encouraged the EU to put similarly large tariffs on India. Both China and India are major buyers of Russian oil. That plays a key role in keeping Russia's economy going as it continues its invasion of Ukraine. Trump's request was reportedly put across through a conference call to EU sanctions envoy David O'Sullivan and other EU officials. The EU delegation is currently in Washington to discuss sanctions coordination. The EU diplomat said the US indicated it was willing to impose similar tariffs if the bloc followed Washington's request. Trump has often threatened to impose tariffs on India and China as punishment for buying Russian crude. He hiked tariffs on India over the summer by 25 percentage points, in part due to its economic relationship with the Kremlin. But he has yet to move forward on the more punishing options he's floated. Trump has at times complained that Europe itself has not fully decoupled from Russia. Moscow supplied just under a fifth of EU gas imports last year. The bloc says it's committed to fully ending its dependency on Russian energy.
Let's go in for a short commercial break. More world news coming right after this. Welcome back. Talks between protesters and Nepalese security forces continue as demonstrations over government policies enter a critical stage. Authorities and demonstrators are engaging in negotiations to ease tensions and restore order, while public unrest continues to affect daily life across the country.
An uneasy calm hovers over Kathmandu after Nepal's worst violence in decades. Residents of the capital rushed to buy groceries after the army announced an hours-long break in the city's curfew. They are hoping to see real political change after protests caused the collapse of the government and left the parliament in flames. Crowds gathered outside the Nepal Army headquarters as discussions on who should head the new government continued inside. As negotiations go on between the military and the self-proclaimed Gen Z movement, Supreme Court Justice Sushila Karki has emerged as the frontrunner. Karki is an academic and Nepal's first woman Supreme Court Justice. She has said that an expert-led government is the way forward for the country. But many protesters also came out to oppose Karki's nomination. Demonstrations began Monday in Kathmandu, triggered by government corruption and a ban on social media.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has issued a stern warning to Qatar, demanding the expulsion of Hamas leaders from Doha. He cautioned that if Qatar fails to comply, Israel may take direct action, escalating tensions in the already volatile Middle East region.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has issued a stark ultimatum to Qatar, demanding the immediate expulsion of Hamas leader residing in Doha, warning that if they fail to comply, Israel will take matters into its own hands. This comes after a recent Israeli airstrike in Doha that targeted several Hamas political figures, resulting in the deaths of 5 Hamas members and a Qatari security officer, an action that has drawn widespread international condemnation. Netanyahu emphasized that nations harboring terrorist organizations must either act decisively to remove them or to face the consequences of inaction, framing this as a matter of national and regional security. Qatar, a key mediator in ongoing Gaza ceasefire negotiations, condemned the strike as state terrorism and accused Israel of undermining delicate diplomatic efforts. Officials in Doha have called for a regional response, warning that such actions risk escalating tensions across the Middle East. Analysts say that ultimatum signals a potential widening of the conflict beyond Gaza, raising concerns about the stability of diplomatic channels in the region. As Netanyahu's warning reverberates internationally, world leaders are closely monitoring Qatar's response, which could set the stage for further geopolitical shifts in the Middle East.
Tensions are rising between the United States and South Korea following a recent immigration raid at a Hyundai LG plant in Georgia, where over 300 South Korean workers were detained. Seoul warns that the move could affect U.S. investment and bilateral economic relations.
A charter plane is scheduled to fly around 316 South Koreans from the U.S. back home after they were arrested and detained by immigration authorities in Georgia. The repatriation flight is scheduled to depart on Thursday at noon local time, with the detainees expected to leave a detention facility and travel to the airport between 2 and 4 a.m. In addition to the 316 South Koreans, 14 other nationals are also set to board the flight, while 1 Korean reportedly chose to remain in the U.S. The workers were detained last week during a raid at the construction site of a Hyundai Motor Group and LG Energy Solution joint battery plant. Although the flight was originally planned for Wednesday, Seoul's foreign ministry said the repatriation was delayed following U.S. President Donald Trump's recommendation, as he wanted to hear Korea's position on whether the detainees should return home or stay in the U.S. to continue helping to train American workers. Debates over whether detainees should be handcuffed while being escorted to the airport were reportedly resolved when Trump ordered that they be transferred without physical restraints. This was confirmed during a meeting between South Korea's Foreign Minister Cho Hyun and U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio at the White House on Wednesday. Following the talks, Cho told reporters that Washington agreed to his requests that the detainees would be repatriated without restraints and their future re-entry into the U.S. would not be affected. He added that given the detainees' shock and exhaustion, it would be better for them to return home first and later come back to the U.S. to work if necessary, a plan that the U.S. side, including Secretary Rubio, respected. He also confirmed that a working group between the U.S. State Department and South Korea's Ministry of Foreign Affairs will be established to discuss the creation of a new visa category for skilled Korean workers. Cho attributed the smooth resolution to the trust built between Trump and President Lee Jae-myung during the recent Korea-U.S. summit, and said that the Foreign Ministry will continue close consultations with the U.S. to ensure the safe and orderly return of its citizens.
Cuba is facing a nationwide blackout after a collapse of its electrical grid affecting millions across the island. Authorities are working to restore power, while the outage highlights ongoing infrastructure challenges and raises concerns about public safety and essential services.
Streetlights and storefronts across Cuba went dark Wednesday as the national power grid collapsed for the fourth time in less than a year. Cuba's grid operator said the failure occurred a little after 9 a.m. local time. Many residents across the island had already been experiencing daily blackouts of 16 hours or more. The grid failure follows a string of nationwide blackouts since late last year that plunged Cuba's frail and antiquated power generation system into near total disarray. The communist country has also been facing fuel, food, and other shortages amid its worst economic crisis in decades. The ministry said causes are being investigated for Wednesday's power outage and that the restoration process had begun.
At least 2 students were critically injured in a high school shooting in Colorado, prompting a swift response from local law enforcement and emergency services. Authorities are investigating the incident, while the community grapples with shock and heightened safety concerns.
Tonight, at least 2 students in critical condition after a shooting outside their Colorado high school.
All fire departments respond on an active assailant, Evergreen High School.
The shots reported just after noon on campus grounds. Hundreds of officers rushing to the scene west of Denver.
2 patients with CPR and another ambulance to all of them.
Authorities say the suspect is a juvenile and believed to be a student at the school. The suspect was also injured and taken to the hospital. Officials saying police never fired their weapon. Ring camera footage from a house near the school shows students running away in a panic, some of them reaching out to their parents by phone. And parents racing to a nearby elementary school to reunite with their children, still shaken by the incident. Mom says her father was a first responder at Columbine High School 26 years ago when 12 students and a teacher were murdered in the same county.
Time for a short break now. We'll be right back with more world news. Welcome back. More U.S. states are moving to implement phone-free policies in schools, aiming to reduce distractions and improve focus among students. Educators and lawmakers are debating the impact on learning, classroom management, and student well-being as the trend gains momentum.
At the Sutter Middle School Talent Show in Folsom, California, you won't see a phone anywhere. The performance is to be recorded in students' memories, not their devices. In 2023, after district leaders decided to make their campuses phone-free, Principal Tariq McFall noticed immediate changes. They started with Yonder pouches. The fabric bags are designed to lock away the phone, then get unlocked with these devices at the end of the school day. But students say the pouches can't be opened.
Most people just didn't put their phone into the Yonder bag at all. And I don't know, they would bang it against walls. I know one girl who she cut it.
After a year, Sutter decided to hang up on the pouches, but they didn't give up on the phone-free campus. Now the policy is to keep phones off and away. But the Yonder pouches are now in schools in all 50 states. Dugoni says it costs about $30 per student for the pouches, training, and support to start up the program. At 2 million students, that's about $60 million.
Chicago recently crowned the winner of its inaugural Bald-Off competition, celebrating creativity and confidence among contestants. Held in Lincoln Park, the event features participants in imaginative costumes, with hundreds of spectators enjoyed the light-hearted showcase of community spirit and fun.
In a light-hearted celebration of baldness, Chicago hosted its inaugural Bald-Off competition on the 24th of August 2025 at Lincoln Park's self-portrait sculpture in the AIDS Garden. Over 60 contestants showcased their gleaming scalps, vying for the coveted title of Baddest Baldie. Participants donned creative costumes, including a standout entry dressed as the iconic character Mr. Clean. The event, organized by the comedy sketch group It Left the Group Chat, aimed to foster community engagement and promote the group's upcoming comedic performances. The competition featured a diverse array of participants, from Steve Harvey impersonators to hairless cats, embodying the event's inclusive and humorous spirit. The Bald-Off drew several hundred onlookers, quickly gaining traction on social media platforms. While the event was a one-time occurrence, organizers hinted at the possibility of future gatherings, promising more fun and eccentric style in their upcoming shows. The success of the Bald-Off highlights Chicago's vibrant community spirit and its residents' penchant for unique and entertaining events.
And with that, we come to the end of today's edition of World News Tonight. With the hopes of seeing you again, I'm Pritika Sivakumar, and we'll leave you tonight with the visuals of Mexico City unveiling the largest sandwich. Also, don't forget to send us your feedback through email at feedback.ad24english@derana.lk or via WhatsApp at 076-805-7933. Anuradhi Vikramasinghe will be joining you next with the Nightly Business Report. Thank you for watching. Have a great night.